Morning arrived quietly at Auntie Reenie Nectarine's cottage. Not all at once, just a little at a time. First there was the sound of the sea, a low foamy hush that rolled in and faded back out of the open window, steady and patient. Then the light followed, slipping through the curtains and resting on the patchwork quilts that were tucked under all the bunnies' chinnigans. Berry woke first. He lay very still, listening. The sea didn't sound like the river back home, or the pond in the garden. It didn't gurgle through the rocks, or plop with a lily-pad leap of a frog. Instead it breathed in, breathed out, in and out, as if it had all the time under the sky. Berry smiled and nudged Floyd gently with his foot. "Listen," he whispered. Floyd blinked, then tilted his head toward the window. "It sounds big," he said. "And calm," Millie Moonbeam added, sitting up and smoothing her ears. Roscoe stretched and moseyed to the window. Outside, the sky was pale and stretched wide, the colour of fresh linen. A few gulls drifted past, calling softly, then disappearing again. "Looks like a good day for the sea," he said. Downstairs, breakfast was already underway. Auntie Reenie Nectarine stood at the stove, humming a dainty ditty, stirring a pan of creamy butter beans in a thick tomato sauce, flavoured with thyme and marjoram. Thick slices of crusty bread were toasting on forks above the fire in the hearth, turning golden and smelling warm and inviting. More than a whisker quivered, and there was a distinct rumbling of tumbletons. Auntie Reenie Nectarine made the most wonderful baked beans, and to top the lot, a pot of shiny marmalade sat open on the table, its spoon glinting on the saucer beside it. "Good morning, travellers," she said cheerfully. "Did the sea sing you awake?" "Yes," said Berry. "It sang through my dreams and led me into the day." "That's because it knows you're listening," she replied, setting down a plate. They ate slowly, soft, buttery beans in thick, herby sauce covering slices of toast, charred just enough from the warmth of the fire in the hearth. There were mugs of warm milk and slices of pear that tasted as sweet as rose-petal dew. Outside, the sound of the sea was never far away. After breakfast, coats were fetched and scarves chosen, lighter ones today, though the air still held a cool edge. Auntie Reenie Nectarine handed Roscoe a small cloth bag. "For shells," she said, "or pebbles, or thoughts you'd like to keep." The path to the beach wound gently downhill, past cottages with salt-faded doors and gardens full of cheerful plants that didn't mind the wind. The air smelled clean and sharp, with a hint of seaweed and brine. When the tufty grass of the sand dunes faded away into the sand, the beach finally opened out in front of them. The bunnies stopped, eyes bright and wide. The sea stretched distance far, and its blue-grey surface rippled softly. The sand was darker and firmer near the water, pale and smooth higher up where the tide had already been. waves slid in and folded over themselves with a quiet hush of a sigh. No one spoke for a moment. "It's bigger than I thought," Floyd said at last. "Yes," said Roscoe, "but it's not in a rush." They took their shoes off and walked carefully down to the edge of the water. The sand felt cool and compact beneath their paws. A wave crept forward, touched their feet, then slipped away again. The bunnies felt their toes sink into the sand as the water sucked back towards the foamy shore. Berry hopped back with a small laugh. "It's braver than it looks." They wandered along the shoreline, each at their own pace. Millie Moonbeam collected shells, smooth white ones, ridged pink ones, and one tiny spiral she held up to the light. Caratina found a piece of driftwood shaped like an antler and carried it proudly. Floyd discovered a rock with a curly swirl getting tighter towards the middle. He was sure it was a fossil. He'd ask Auntie Reenie Nectarine when they got back to her cottage. Roscoe walked a little behind them, watching the way they moved, stopping, starting, noticing. Every now and then a gull would land nearby, tilt its head, then decide the bunnies weren't very interesting after all. They sat on a flat rock to rest, the sea stretching out before them, gleaming and winking. Berry poured a few shells into the cloth bag. "I think the sea leaves things behind on purpose," he said. "So we remember it," Millie Moonbeam agreed. When the sun climbed higher, they found a sheltered spot in the dunes, out of the wind. They shared a simple picnic. Sourdough bread, crumbly sharp cheese, and bright yellow piccalilli were all laid out neatly. Then followed sweet, ripe apricots and Battenberg squares. And to drink, a small bottle of elderflower cordial each. "I'm glad you remembered the curly straws, Caratina," said Roscoe. All the while, the sea kept up its steady rhythm while they ate and drank. "It feels different from home," said Caratina, "but nice." "That's how it should feel," said Roscoe. "Different enough to notice, comfortable enough to enjoy." By the time they turned back, the tide had crept higher up the sand, smoothing away their footprints as though they had never been there at all. Back at the cottage, Auntie Reenie Nectarine had the kettle on and a pie cooling on the windowsill. "Well?" she asked. "It was exactly right," Berry said. The afternoon passed gently. Some of them rested by the crackle of the fire. Some drew pictures of waves and shells. Floyd lined his pebbles up on the windowsill, smallest to largest. As evening came on, the sea grew darker, its sound deepening slightly as the light faded. At bedtime, Berry lay listening once more. "It's still there," he murmured. "Yes," said Roscoe softly, "and it will be in the morning too." The world felt wide, but not too wide. Blankets were tucked under chinnigans. Friendship ears found downy paws. All was snug. All was well. Night, night.